Hello there and welcome to my boat shed. My name is Panu and I am building this 15-meter or 50-foot sailboat here in Finland. In previous video we got all the frames kind of dry fitted here and also the stem. And now we're gonna focus on the stern assembly and let's go and take a look at that now. So it is this area between these two frames. This is the last frame, of course, the stern will be here. And the rudder stock will be about in here. So this shape in here is the shape we're gonna be filled with some wood. And this surface right here is the same height as this. So it will be filled in this surface from here to there. And as you can see, this height over here is on this frame, but here the same height is about here. So there is quite a lot of shape into this area. And I was really trying to figure out how I'm be able to do this shape from here to there and kind of lowering down and getting it really right. Actually, I did already a version where I would put a plywood sheet in here on the bottom, resting on this, and kind of fill this area with some wooden blocks that had shape done with the CNC, same manner as with the stem wood. But I made all those programs already and was sure that this is the way to go, but that would require me to laminate 40 centimeters wide, 45 millimeters thick wooden blocks together and plane them down and then CNC cut all the parts from them. There would have been, if I remember correct, 16 different pieces to laminate and cut like 1 to 4 parts from each of those. So that would have been weeks of work to be able to laminate all of those together and plane them and put them on the CNC, and yeah, that was just too much. So I started to figure out everything again, and I kind of came to conclusion that I just put plywood sheets here in certain levels and shape them from here to there with the CNC so that the shape comes from those plywood sheets, and then I would laminate just strips of wood between those plywood sheets like this and then shape it with a planer from the outside later. That's probably the most efficient and fastest way to do this. And that requires only 3 sheets of plywood to be cut with the CNC, and I should get all the parts needed here. Because there is also this pocket here, so the lower surface will be in this level, and this area right here will be the pocket where the rudder quadrant will be placed in. There's another sheet of plywood here, and it will form a pocket inside here. It's a little bit difficult to show you because this is upside down, and yeah, but I will show the 3D model for you right now. You can see the pocket in there and the quadrant in there. And this area about here is gonna be another small pocket divided by some plywood here, and that will be the area for the wind vane mechanism. I'm not sure if there's gonna be a wind vane, but there is a placement for that if I want to install it later. But it will be placed in here, and there is a placement for the wind vane pipe already here. So I want to make it as integrated as possible. So no kind of additional things and knickknacks on the stern to catch lines or be on the way when backing to the dock. But yeah, I have now the programs ready for these parts, and I think we'll get now 1 sheet of plywood to the CNC. It has been actually at least a couple of months since I used the CNC. Let's do the dry fitting next in here, and that's gonna be really exciting because it's the actual next part of the boat, and yeah, we'll see. pieces are cut with the CNC, and I removed a little bit from here to add more length into this, because I added actually this part right here later after this mold was done. So the original mold was right in here, but now I added this 22 centimeters here, additional length to that. And as you can see, when I turn this carefully around here, like that. I think I'm not gonna glue the first layers here on its place because it is bent. So I decided I actually am going to make the first glue up on the CNC, because that is the most flat surface in all here. So I'm gonna do the first glue ups in there to get it as flat as I just possibly can. So let's take a little bit look of these pieces. This is obviously the first part. It's gonna form this bottom section. There's gonna be additional layers of plywood here to make the actual dinghy garage floor, but that's much later. For putting this in right position and correct way, I did a couple of additional pieces. So this piece right here is gonna be located in here, just against this frame. It has these holes that corresponds holes in this frame. So I got these holes from the frame plan, and this is gonna be glued against this mold. I need to cut out here a little bit to fit this in there, but you got the idea. Then there is these slots that represent these horizontal pieces, and I actually somehow managed to screw up a little bit, and there is one slot here missing, this first piece. It doesn't have that slot in here, but I can cut those quite easily. All this space between these is going to be laminated from just regular wood. So this is going to be done layer by layer. Yeah, they look quite nice. This is on its position. It looks good. I got the additional slots made that were missing. Now here is additional pieces that should go something like that in there, here somehow. And in here, this is obviously the recess for the quadrant. It will be placed in here. This is upside down, of course. And these pieces should form that space right in there. And here will be 2 layers of plywood, like so, to separate this compartment from this. And this is for the wind vane mechanism. And yeah, these should kind of place everything on their right positions. I probably have to do this layer by layer somehow. There's gonna be quite a lot of parts. These should be glued in and the pieces go there, and then the next layer of plywood on top of that, these pieces placed in here, then additional layer of wood, and then another piece of plywood on top of all this, so that there is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of plywood, and then there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of wood between those plywood layers. So quite a lot. And next I need to start figuring out that stock for those wooden layers. And they of course should be as accurate as possible to fit between the plywood layers. But yeah, looks good for now. was a little bit too fast making these parts. I forgot a couple of small things. First one was that, of course, when you're doing things with the CNC, the radius of the blade will give kind of a radius in these kind of slots. So you have to do the relief corner there. There is none of those. That wasn't a big deal. I could make that with the multi-tool quite easily. But the second thing is that the assembly is a bit difficult because I have these slots in two different directions. So for example, this one should come through here, but it also should connect with this part and go through here and then connect into that. So yeah, I need to think this a little bit. And also, although I did use tolerances 0.4 millimeters with these joints, it's not enough in all cases. For some reason they vary just a tiny bit, so that some of these joints are pretty tight. So what I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna relieve these joints with the multi-tool a little bit more so that they are kind of loose, so that everything should assemble easily together. That way I can start laminating the wood here in the bottom and kind of put this whole thing assembled on its place when the lamination underneath here is done. As you can see, there's gonna be first lamination layer with this stock. I milled some stock. First layer in this direction and second layer in that direction. That should correspond with this hole quite nicely, and this layer will come on top of that, like so. And then second layer and so forth. And of course, this is quite a big job. I'm gonna do it one layer at a time. So I'm gonna laminate these two layers of wood here and then put this first layer of plywood on its place. And because of this problem, I have to put actually this layer and these parts as one big piece on top of that laminated thing. So we'll see about that in just a moment, but now I'm gonna cut a little bit more relief on all of these joints so that they will assemble more easily. Yeah, that's the plan right now. This took a few days to do. There's now 4 layers of these small wooden blocks here in either direction between of these plywoods, and they fit quite well. Now the next thing really is to start figuring out the glue up. This is gonna be a huge job, and basically I need to do this whole thing in one glue up session, because I really need to be able to put this back wall here as well at the same time to be able to push them all together and kind of getting these on their places. There's a danger if I go with just 1 or 2 layers at a time, there's too much squeeze out or they move a little bit and these won't fit anymore. So I need to do this in one session. For that, I need to prepare, of course, things. I need to take this all apart, mark them well, so that I know exactly where everything needs to go, and then just do it. It will take many hours, probably whole day. The good thing is that the temperatures have starting to fall. It's now 2nd of October, and this maybe week or so have been mostly around 10 degrees or below. It's now, I think it was something like 8 degrees Celsius right now. That means I have a lot more working time with the epoxy. It's also a little bit thicker and it's easier to handle with wood, not so much with fiberglass, I believe. But for wood that is just great because it's more sticky and not that thin, and it stays on its place better. So that's good, and it won't kick that fast, so I have plenty of working time with this. There wasn't really any major problems making these strips. I just cut and planed all these pieces and cut them in length, and I hope they are close enough so that when I eventually shape this shape, I can take the material off here and there would be not a big voids here. It really doesn't matter that much that, well, everything will be filled and this will be covered with the planking of the boat eventually, so it's not that crucial, but the shape needs to go pretty accurately. But yeah, I think I now start disassembling this, take all these parts off, put them on the side there to be easily taken from there, and I need to think about a little bit how the spreading of the glue should go most easily. I hope I can get someone to help me with this, but we'll see about that. Looking good though. This looks very, very promising, and yeah, it's very sturdy and stays place and everything is square and nice. Okay, today's agenda is to glue the first 4 layers of this thing. I have now established again my epoxy mixing station here. I have a resin, hardeners, mixing doodads and stuff, gloves. And back here is the actual thing we're gonna do. The first layer of plywood is here waiting, and all the pieces are there on the shelf in certain order, I believe. So now it's just several hours of mixing epoxy, applying it there and all those strips and putting them on their place. There is really one thing I'm a little bit kind of concerned, is that how they stay on their place while the glue is in there and how I'm gonna be able to push them together enough. But I think the epoxy is filling enough of those gaps so that it's not that crucial to really squeeze them together that hard. There is some of those strips that are a little bit wonky, but not very much. So I think it's all right. And for the final layer, I believe I'm gonna use those lead ingots I purchased last spring. So I have some weight to put on this so it pushes everything flat, and that is really the thing that matters here. So yeah, wish me luck, and I'll put just some time lapse. I'm not sure if batteries will last the whole thing, but we'll see how this goes. I often use the phrase just like that, but this definitely wasn't just like that. It's now 8 hours later and it is done. The first 4 layers have been laminated in, and now it can cure for a few days. It's now 4th of October and temperatures have dropped significantly in past couple of weeks. It was a record-breaking heat wave at September, so yeah, it was like 20 degrees the whole September basically. But now it's around maybe 10 degrees Celsius here, but it's very good for this kind of job because the epoxy has a lot of working time, of course, and now I just leave it several days like this and it can cure just by itself. There's a few of those lead ingots on top there to push it down a little bit, but yeah, I think everything kind of went as well as they can be. I really don't need any additional pressure there. I just put some screws here to hold this on its proper place, and everything else just lays where it wants to be. The epoxy will fill the small gaps between those wood boards, and yeah, feels quite good actually. It went quite well there. And I think well prepared is half done in this case. But now I think I'll go home, get a shower, get something good to eat, and then in few days we come back and see how this has cured. About a week later, we got this thing off from the CNC. It's now cured and solid, and I had to ask help from my son because this is so heavy. There is no way I can move this by myself. And I actually did all the pieces for the rest of the layers, so they are waiting for the next stage. Before we can put this on its place back there, we need to fix those frames into the boat and maybe build some kind of temporary structures to hold this thing on its place, because this is, as mentioned, quite heavy. And that said, I think it's enough for this video. This was interesting build even to this stage, and in next video we're gonna start fixing the frames in. I at least hope so. So thank you so much for watching, and remember to subscribe and give me a like, and if you want to support these videos, please go and check the Patreon page. This build is gonna continue with full steam ahead. Bye bye!